When I turned 50, I thought my family would finally recognize all the hard work I had put into building my career. I had worked tirelessly to get to where I was, to create a life for myself that didn't depend on anyone else. I had poured every ounce of energy into my business, sacrificed countless hours, and pushed through every challenge. But when I finally hit my milestone, when everything seemed like it was finally falling into place, that's when I realized just how little they cared. My husband, my kids, none of them saw it. None of them appreciated the blood, sweat, and tears I had poured into making everything work. At my birthday dinner that year, my husband, Charles, was there, sitting across from me, smiling like everything was perfect. But I could see it in his eyes. The indifference, the subtle way he looked past me, as if my success didn't matter to him anymore. My daughter, Katie, was on her phone the entire night, only half-heartedly engaging in conversation, while my son, Ben, barely spoke at all. As the night went on, my disappointment grew. I had organized everything, decorated, ordered the food, made sure everyone would show up, but in the end, it felt like it was just me doing the work. And then, my daughter-in-law, Emily, made a comment that took me by surprise. She looked at me, with a tight smile on her face, and said, "You've done so well for yourself, but you know, it must be nice to not have to worry about money." Those words stung more than I could have imagined. I smiled politely, but inside, I was crushed. It felt like she was reminding me that everything I had built was something they took for granted. I was still expected to do everything. Host the family dinners, pick up the slack, while they reaped the rewards without even acknowledging how hard I had worked. That night, I went to bed feeling empty, like everything I had done was for nothing. The next day, I had to face the reality of my life again. No recognition, no support, just the cold, indifferent faces of the people who should have cared the most. I thought about it all day, stewing in my frustration, my thoughts circling around my family's lack of appreciation. It wasn't just about the dinner or the comments. It was everything that had led up to that moment. Every unspoken expectation, every quiet assumption that I would always be the one to handle it all. I had built my life, my success, all on my own. And yet, my family acted as if it was nothing. That day, I decided I wasn't going to take it anymore. I had given them everything. My time, my energy, my love, and all I had gotten in return was this cold, empty feeling of being invisible. I wasn't going to let them continue taking credit for my hard work. I wasn't going to let them dismiss me anymore. It was time to take a stand. The first step was simple. I was going to make them see the truth. They couldn't take credit for what they hadn't earned. The next time they took me for granted, I was going to make sure they knew just who had made everything possible. I spent the next few days reflecting on everything that had happened. The dinner, the comments, the way my family acted as if I wasn't even there. It wasn't the first time I had felt invisible, but this time it stung more than ever. I had worked hard to build everything I had, yet they couldn't even acknowledge it. I thought back to all the sacrifices I had made for them over the years, sacrifices that had gone unnoticed, unappreciated. When I first started my business, it was just a dream. A small idea I had nurtured through sleepless nights and long days of working multiple jobs just to get it off the ground. It wasn't easy, but I did it. And when it started to grow, when the success finally came, my family wasn't there to celebrate it with me. They were too busy with their own lives, too preoccupied with their own problems to notice that I had finally made it. And now, they were taking credit for my success, as if I had somehow owed it to them. I realized that I had been playing a role for so long, the dutiful wife, the caring mother, the provider, and I had forgotten what it felt like to take care of myself. I had spent years putting everyone else's needs before my own, and in return, they expected me to keep doing it. But I wasn't going to keep playing that role anymore. I wasn't going to let them walk all over me and take credit for my hard work. It was time for them to face the truth. I couldn't change what had happened, but I could make sure they understood who had made it all possible. So, I began quietly gathering evidence. I went back to the business records, the contracts, the receipts, everything that showed the work I had put in over the years. I started taking notes on the way they had been taking advantage of me, on the little things they said and did that showed how little they valued me. It wasn't about revenge. It was about making sure they knew the truth. They needed to see the reality of what they had done. It wasn't about making them feel guilty. It was about standing up for myself. When the time came, I would show them that I wasn't just a bystander in my own life, that I had worked hard to get where I was, and I wasn't going to let them take credit for it anymore. The next time I saw them, I would be ready. They wouldn't see it coming. I would be calm, collected, and they would know exactly where they stood. No more pretending, no more holding back. It was time for them to face the truth, and I was going to make sure they did. I had been waiting for the perfect moment to confront them. I had all the evidence I needed, but it wasn't just about showing them what they had done. It was about taking control of my own narrative. I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine when they had taken so much from me, not just physically, but emotionally. My mind had been racing with the plan, and the moment I had been preparing for was finally here. That Saturday, I invited everyone over for dinner. I knew they would expect the same old routine. My husband, Charles, would be there, along with my daughter, Katie, and my son, Ben, along with their partners. They would probably assume everything was normal, that I had let go of my frustrations. But this time, I was different. This time, I was ready. As they gathered around the table, I made small talk, just like always. Charles kept talking about his latest project, Ben kept checking his phone, and Katie acted like she was too busy with her work to pay much attention. I could feel the weight of their indifference pressing down on me, but I held it in. I was calm. I was prepared. After a few minutes, I stood up, asked them to pass the food around, and then calmly said, "I have something important to share with all of you." They all stopped what they were doing, looking at me with surprise. "What's going on, honey?" Charles asked, his voice full of that same dismissive tone I had heard too many times before. I looked around the table at my family, the ones who had been taking advantage of me, and I finally spoke the truth. "You all think I don't notice, but I do. You've been taking credit for my success for years now, and I've let you. But not anymore." I could see them start to squirm, but I wasn't finished. I pulled out the folders I had prepared, the ones filled with all the evidence of their lies and deceit. I've been working my whole life to build this company. My company. But somehow, you all thought you could take it from me. You took what was mine, and you pretended like you were the ones who built it. I watched as the color drained from their faces. Charles looked like he had just been slapped. Katie looked uncomfortable, but she wasn't meeting my eyes. Ben shifted in his seat, clearly regretting whatever he had been doing before. I continued, my voice steady. "I know about the accounts. I know about the transfers, the things you've done behind my back to undermine me. But I'm not going to stand here and let you take credit for what you never earned." The silence that followed was deafening. For a moment, no one said anything. I could see their shock, their guilt slowly starting to register. I had exposed them, and there was no turning back. Finally, Charles spoke, his voice trembling slightly. "Rebecca, what are you talking about? You're just being paranoid." I didn't even flinch at his words. "Paranoid? No, Charles. I'm not paranoid. I'm awake. And I'm done letting you take everything from me." I could see the anger in his eyes, but it was different now. This time, it wasn't me he could manipulate. I had taken back control, and for the first time in years, I felt the power shift. Katie stood up, clearly uncomfortable with the situation, and muttered, "This is ridiculous." But I didn't care. I wasn't going to be the one to back down this time. Ben, who had been silent the whole time, finally spoke up, his voice soft. I didn't know about any of this, but I could tell that his words didn't carry the weight they used to. There was no more authority in his tone. I had stripped that away. I was done being the invisible woman in my own life. Done being the one they took advantage of. "It doesn't matter whether you knew or not," I said, my voice calm but firm. "You're part of this family, and you're all responsible." The room was thick with tension, and for a moment, I thought they might all turn on me. But I wasn't afraid anymore. I wasn't afraid of losing their approval, because I had finally realized that I didn't need it. The only approval I needed was my own. I finished. I'm taking what's mine. And I'm not going to let you keep pretending like you've done the hard work. This is mine. And I'll be damned if you think you can just walk away with it. The truth was out. It wasn't about the money or the business anymore. It was about me reclaiming my life, my success, and my dignity. It was time to move forward, and nothing was going to stop me. I could feel the tension in the room as they processed what I had just said. My words had hit harder than I anticipated, and the silence that followed was thick, almost suffocating. Charles sat back, his face pale, his hand trembling slightly as he reached for his glass of water. I could see the guilt creeping into his features, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel the need to comfort him. I wasn't the one who had betrayed anyone. Katie, on the other hand, just stared at me, her eyes narrowing as if trying to make sense of everything. Her lips parted, but no words came out. Ben, who had been silent the whole time, finally stood up, his chair scraping against the floor as he moved away from the table. "I need to think," he muttered, his voice low. The tension in the room was unbearable, but I wasn't about to break. I had made my stand, and I wasn't going to back down. I could feel the power shifting, but it wasn't just about the business or the money anymore. It was about control, about me taking back the life I had built. For years, I had been the one holding everything together, the one who made sure the family functioned. But all they had ever done was take from me without even acknowledging the sacrifices I had made. As Ben left the room, I turned to Charles. He was still sitting, staring at me, his expression a mix of confusion and regret. "Rebecca, please, let's talk about this," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Talk about what, Charles?" I replied, my voice steady, but my heart racing. "This isn't about us. This is about you, taking everything from me and pretending like I didn't matter. I've been working for years, building something that was mine, and you've been stealing it from me the whole time." I could see the pain in his eyes, but it wasn't enough. He had taken enough from me already. "I never meant for it to be this way," he said, his voice breaking slightly. "You never meant for it to be this way? How else was it supposed to be? I've sacrificed everything for this family. I gave up my own dreams, my own happiness, just to make sure you all had everything you wanted." My words hung in the air, and for a moment, I thought he might apologize. But then he spoke again, and I knew that nothing had really changed. "I'm sorry, Rebecca. I don't know what else to say, but we can figure this out, together." "No, Charles," I said, shaking my head. "It's too late for that. You've had your chance. And now, it's my turn to make things right for me." I stood up then, my hands steady as I gathered my things. The conversation was over. There was nothing more to say. As I walked out of the room, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. The truth was out, and I had taken control. I didn't need their approval, their acknowledgement, or their forgiveness. I was done being the one who held everything together, and I was done letting them take credit for what I had built. I had done the hard work. I had made the sacrifices. And now, I was going to make sure I was the one who reaped the rewards. The following day, I woke up early, the silence of the house settling around me like a thick blanket. I felt the weight of everything that had happened, but it was different now. It was no longer about anger or frustration. It was about action. I had made my stand, and now I had to follow through. I went into the kitchen, brewed my coffee, and sat by the window, watching the sun rise. It felt like the beginning of something new, something that didn't involve constant self-sacrifice. The phone rang, breaking the calm. It was Charles. I hesitated for a moment before picking up. "Rebecca," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "can we talk? I think we need to figure this out, for the sake of the family." I could hear the desperation in his tone, but I wasn't moved. "Not anymore. Charles," I said, my voice steady. "I've already figured it out. I've spent too many years trying to make this work, and I'm done. You and the rest of the family have taken more than enough from me." I could hear him sigh on the other end of the line. "Please, don't do this. You can't just walk away from everything we've built." "I didn't walk away from anything. You all just walked away from me," I replied. "You took credit for my success, manipulated me into believing that my role was just to give, and you never even considered what I needed or wanted." There was a long pause before he spoke again. "I'm sorry, Rebecca. I never meant for you to feel that way. I just thought." "You just thought what?" "That I would keep sacrificing myself for you all, while you took everything I built." "It's too late for apologies now, Charles." I hung up the phone without another word, feeling a strange sense of relief wash over me. The decision was made. There was no turning back. Later that day, I gathered everything I needed: the business records, the files, the documents that proved the years of manipulation and deceit. I took them to my lawyer, a woman I had known for years but never truly needed until now. She looked over everything in silence, occasionally looking up at me with a thoughtful expression. "You've built this, Rebecca," she said, finally breaking the silence. "But it's clear that they've been using you, taking advantage of your success. This isn't just about the business. This is about you reclaiming your life." Her words were like a breath of fresh air. I had spent so long thinking about them, about their needs, about what they wanted. But now it was time to think about me, to take back control. The lawyer suggested a few actions: contacting the bank, making sure the property was legally under my name, and ensuring that the company shares were properly divided. I nodded. Let's do it. It's time. That night, I sat in front of my computer, drafting the emails and making the phone calls that would set everything in motion. I was no longer afraid of what would happen. The truth was out, and I wasn't going to let anyone take advantage of me again. The next morning, Charles called again, but this time, I didn't answer. I was done talking. I had made my decision, and it was time to act. I didn't need his approval anymore. I didn't need anyone's approval. I had spent too long living for others, and now it was my turn. I was going to take back my life, my business, and my future, and nothing was going to stop me. I spent the next few days in a kind of quiet determination. My lawyer had filed the necessary paperwork, and I had taken steps to secure the business and property. It felt like the calm before the storm, but I wasn't scared anymore. For the first time in years, I felt a sense of clarity, a weight lifting off my shoulders. I wasn't just fighting for what was mine. I was fighting for my future. The phone rang again. This time it was Ben. I hesitated before answering. I wasn't sure what he would say, but I knew this conversation was inevitable. "Mom, we need to talk," he said. His voice was quiet, and I could hear the hesitation in it. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "What is it, Ben?" "Look, I know things have been rough," he started, his words trailing off as if he were searching for the right ones. "But I think you're making a huge mistake. You can't just walk away from everything we've worked for as a family. We built this together." I could feel the old familiar frustration bubbling up, but I stayed calm. "Ben, I've been the one building it. You all just stood by and let me do the work, thinking you could take credit for it when it was convenient. But not anymore." He was quiet for a moment. "I didn't know," he said softly. "I didn't know it was this bad. I didn't know you felt like that." His words stung, but I couldn't let myself feel sorry for him anymore. "It's not just about the business, Ben. It's about respect. It's about recognizing that I've sacrificed everything for this family, and no one ever noticed. I gave up my own happiness, my own life, just to keep this all running smoothly, and you all took it for granted." I could hear him shifting on the other end of the line, but he didn't speak right away. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry," he said eventually. "But it's not enough anymore. I've spent too long letting you and your father, and everyone else, walk all over me. I can't keep doing it. Not anymore." There was another long silence. "So what now?" Ben finally asked. "Now, I take control of my life," I said firmly. "I'm not going to keep playing this role where I'm the one doing all the work and getting none of the credit. I'm moving forward, and I'm doing it on my own terms." I could hear the resignation in his voice. "I understand," he said, "but I hope you know this isn't easy for me, either." "It's not easy for anyone," I replied. "But this is something I have to do." We hung up shortly after that. I sat there for a while, the weight of the conversation sinking in. I didn't know if I would ever fully repair my relationship with Ben, or with Charles, or with any of them, but I knew I had to do this for myself. I couldn't keep giving, couldn't keep sacrificing everything I had for people who took it all for granted. The next morning, I got a call from my lawyer. "We've got everything in place," she said, her voice confident. "You're ready to move forward." My heart pounded in my chest. This was it. This was the moment I had been waiting for. "Thank you," I said, my voice steady. "Let's do it." As I hung up the phone, I felt a sense of finality. The decisions had been made, the steps had been taken. There was no going back now. I was going to take my life back, no matter what it cost me. I was ready. I knew the moment had come, and there was no turning back. I had done everything I could to prepare. The business was secured, my assets protected, and the truth was now out in the open. But now it was time to see what my family would do. Would they admit the truth and face the consequences of their actions? Or would they try to manipulate the situation, as they had always done? I sat at the kitchen table, sipping my coffee, waiting. The silence of the house felt strange now, as though it were holding its breath, waiting for the storm to break. It didn't take long before the first knock came at the door. I wasn't surprised when I saw Charles standing there, looking as though he hadn't slept all night. His face was drawn, his eyes tired, but there was something else too: guilt, shame, maybe even a hint of fear. "Rebecca," he started, his voice shaky. "Can we talk?" I nodded, stepping aside to let him in. "We need to fix this," he said, his voice pleading. "I've been thinking about everything, and I don't want to lose you. I don't want to lose what we built. I took a deep breath, gathering my thoughts before responding. It's not about what we built, Charles. It's about what you took from me. All these years, I've given everything, and you've taken it all for granted. His shoulders slumped, and he took a step closer. I didn't mean to hurt you, Rebecca. I didn't know how to handle everything. You didn't handle anything, Charles. You let me carry the weight of it all while you played the victim. You never once considered what I needed or wanted. You never saw me for who I was, just what I could do for you. The words were out before I could stop them, and I could see the hurt in his eyes. But it wasn't enough for me to back down. I had spent too long suppressing my feelings, pretending everything was fine. I'm sorry, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. But it's too late for apologies. You had your chance. I paused, letting the silence settle between us. I had given him so many chances over the years, always believing things could change, that he would wake up and see me. But he never did. I stood up then, walking to the counter to grab the folder that contained all the evidence. I've done all I can, Charles. I'm not asking for your forgiveness, and I'm not going to beg for your approval. This is my life, and I'm going to live it on my terms. I handed him the folder, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of realization in his eyes. He took it from me without a word, flipping through the documents. You knew about the transfers, the accounts, everything, I said, my voice steady. I knew long before you thought I did. Charles looked up at me, his face a mixture of guilt and disbelief. I didn't think you knew. I never thought you would find out. That's the problem, Charles. You thought I didn't know, and that's why you thought you could keep getting away with it. But I'm not your fool anymore. I'm done. I watched as he stood there, frozen, trying to process everything. But I wasn't going to wait around for him to understand. I had waited long enough. This is over, I said, turning away from him. I'm done with all of it. I'm done with you. And I'm done with the lies. There was no more to say. I had made my decision, and I was going to see it through. Charles stood there for a moment, not moving, as if he were waiting for me to take it all back. But I wasn't going to. Not this time. I had taken back my life, and there was no turning back. As he left, I didn't feel relief or anger. I felt nothing, just the quiet certainty that I had done the right thing. I wasn't going to be their scapegoat anymore. I wasn't going to let them steal from me any longer. The storm had passed, and now it was time to rebuild, on my own terms. I had spent the last few days in a kind of quiet reflection, watching the world go by as I sorted through my next steps. The house was still the same, but it felt different now. There was a weight in the air, an unspoken tension that had been building up for years. I had taken my power back, and the path ahead was clear. I was ready to move forward, even if it meant leaving my past behind. Charles didn't call again. I wasn't sure if it was because he had finally accepted that I wasn't going to change my mind, or if he just couldn't face the consequences of his actions. I wasn't sure if I cared. In a way, the silence was what I needed. For the first time, I could breathe without feeling the burden of their expectations on my shoulders. I had no idea what the future held, but it was mine to shape now. The next week, the phone rang again. It was Katie. Her voice was soft, hesitant, almost apologetic. "Mom, we need to talk." I hesitated, unsure of how to respond. It had been weeks since we last spoke, and I wasn't sure if I was ready to reopen that door. But I knew I couldn't avoid this conversation forever. "All right, Katie, come over." She arrived later that afternoon, her face drawn, her eyes tired. She walked into the living room and sat down across from me, looking like she wasn't sure where to start. "I've been thinking a lot about everything that's happened," she began, her voice low. "And I realize now how much I've taken you for granted." I didn't respond immediately, just watched her as she spoke. I wasn't angry anymore. The anger had faded a long time ago, replaced with something else, something quieter, more resolute. "I don't know what I was thinking," Katie continued. "I guess I was too caught up in my own life to realize how much you've sacrificed. I didn't understand what you were going through, and I'm sorry." I sat back in my chair, letting her words sink in. This wasn't the apology I had expected, but it was something. "Katie," I said softly, "it's not just about the apology. It's about understanding that I'm not going to be the one who keeps giving and giving while you all take." She nodded, her eyes filling with tears. "I get it now. I really do. And I'm sorry it took me this long to see it." There was a long silence between us, the kind of silence that spoke volumes. I wasn't sure if I could fully forgive her, or if I even wanted to. But in that moment, I realized something important. I didn't need her forgiveness. I didn't need anyone's approval. I was free to live my life on my own terms, without worrying about what they thought. I'm not asking for anything, Katie, I said, my voice steady. I've made my peace with everything. This is about me moving forward, not about trying to fix what's broken. She nodded again, wiping away a tear. I understand. I don't know if I can fix things, but I'll try. I want to be better. For you, and for myself. I looked at her for a moment, then smiled softly. That's all I can ask for. After Katie left, I felt a strange sense of calm. It wasn't the closure I had been expecting, but it was enough. I had come to terms with the past, and now I was ready to face the future. The future wasn't perfect, and it wasn't going to be easy, but it was mine. And that was all that mattered. I wasn't going to keep looking back, wondering what could have been. I was going to keep moving forward, one step at a time, and finally live the life I had built for myself. I woke up the next morning feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. It wasn't that everything was fixed. It wasn't that everything was perfect. But for the first time in what felt like forever, I was in control. I had faced my family, had told them what they needed to hear, and I had taken steps to secure my future. And now, for the first time, I could think about what I wanted. I wasn't just going through the motions anymore. I wasn't just trying to please everyone else. The phone rang again, and I recognized the number immediately. It was Ben. I hadn't heard from him since that night we spoke, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for another conversation. But this time, something in his voice made me hesitate before picking up. Hey, Mom, he said, his voice uncertain. I've been thinking a lot about what you said, and I think I owe you an apology. Not just for what I did, but for not understanding. His words were different this time, softer, less defensive. I could feel the weight of everything that had been said between us, and it was clear that he wasn't just apologizing because it was expected. He was apologizing because he finally understood. Ben, I don't need you to apologize, I said, keeping my voice steady. What I need is for you to understand that I'm not just here to serve everyone else. I'm here for me, too, and I'm not going to keep putting myself last. There was a pause on the other end of the line. I know, Mom. I've been selfish, and I didn't see it. I guess I was so caught up in my own life that I didn't realize how much you had sacrificed for me and for the family. It's not just about sacrifices, Ben, I said, the words coming out more easily now. It's about respect. It's about understanding that I have a life, too. And for so long, I let you all walk all over me, thinking it was my responsibility to keep everything running. I understand now, he said quietly. And I'm sorry. I never meant to take advantage of you, but I know I did. I just want you to know that I'm here for you now. I felt a knot in my chest loosen, but I wasn't ready to forgive him yet. Not completely. I appreciate that, Ben, I said. But this isn't something I can just forget. It's going to take time. I know, he replied. And I'll give you the time you need. I just wanted to say that I see you now. I see everything you've done, and I'm grateful. The conversation ended, and I sat there for a while, letting his words sink in. Maybe there was a chance for us to rebuild, but it would take time. And I wasn't going to rush it. I had learned over the years that sometimes the most important thing was taking things one step at a time. I didn't need their approval anymore, but I was open to the idea of rebuilding the relationships that still mattered. The sun was setting, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. I had done what I needed to do. I had spoken my truth. Now, it was time to move forward, not just for them, but for me. I wasn't going to live my life for anyone else anymore. It was mine to live, and I was going to make the most of it.